Good evening. Thank you for joining us on Sunday evening. Our first conversation today, it's said about, and it's an unattributed quote because there are too many people willing to claim it, but it is said that I became an overnight success after 20 years. That really is what a lot of cinema success looks like. You don't see what came before, you see it from the moment it hit your consciousness. But for the person who has spent that time, the 20 years that you did not see, and 20 years is metaphorical because if Jim Sarbh had spent 20 years, he would have started while he was in his diapers, roughly. But that time that you put in behind the scenes is really the time that goes into the making of your creative imagination, into the choices you make. He exploded into our consciousness with Nirja, the breakaway success of Nirja. And of course, there were then roles in Sanju, roles in Padmavat, A Death in the Ganj, and most recently, of course, also on the web series Made in Heaven, on the Amazon web series Made in Heaven. But there is, just in that lineup alone, there are roles that often are choices made much later on in a career. He has played a drug peddler. He has played a slave boy to a king. He has played, of course, a Palestinian terrorist. And in that really eclectic filmography, there is a sign of the actor that Jim Sarbh not only is, but aspires to be. Is there method behind the Jim Sarbh madness is the conversation we're going to have today. And for that, it's a pleasure to have him up on stage.
It's a bit bright.
Yeah, it is bright. It's a little too bright. I think there's a glare in the eyes. Vineet? Okay, they'll fix that. Okay, so thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Hi, guys.
Before we come to the films, what was it about, you don't come from what I know from an acting family. I think your mother was a physiotherapist and your father was a seaman, he was a mariner.
Yeah.
And was there acting in the family blood somewhere, or does it start with you?
No, I think it starts with me.
And did you always know you wanted to be an actor, or did that also come upon you at some point?
I don't think I had a choice.
That's an interesting formulation. What didn't give you a choice?
I think I've always been doing it in some form or the other through middle school and high school and college, and I don't know if I believe in choices. I don't know if I believe in them. I think that forces shape you that are beyond your understanding or control, and all you can really do is allow them.
So when did, even if you don't frame it as a choice, when did it become then something that you could not look away from?
Right. So the year after college, I was interning at a big theater in Atlanta.
So, and this was college in the US, you went to
In the US,
Emory.
yeah, I went to Emory.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was interning at this college, at this theater in Atlanta called the Alliance Theater, and I found the other actors in the plays that I was doing to be kind of annoying and narcissistic and pretty, silly, and they just wanted to do the script as it was rehearsed, and nobody could change anything on the set. And for me, it was like, well, isn't that the fun of it? Isn't the fun the uncertainty of small changes every evening, or big changes every evening, and you're suddenly faced with something you don't know how to deal with, and then the audience gets to see some version of bravery or honesty where you try to grapple with a situation you don't know anything about. And it didn't seem like the other actors really were interested in that. It seemed like they were more interested in doing it as it was rehearsed. This is definitely going to work. No uncertainty, as much certainty as possible. And I find that boring. So then I came back to Bombay, and I went to an ashram in Bihar for 5 months.
Because that's where acting is taught.
No.
No, it is.
No, because it was like, because it felt like as I was getting more interested in acting in this year post-college, and it's a very post-college, finding yourself nonsense thing to believe, you know, which is like, oh, I'm more interested in myself and I'm more interested in finding out what makes me tick, and I felt like I was going through theater in order to get there, and I was like, maybe there's a more direct route.
Sure.
Maybe like the whole spiritual thing is the way to do it. And so then I went to this ashram, and then I started wandering around. I like walked up to Gaumukh.
You went
and,
alone and you lost your way, I think.
Yeah, at times, yeah.
Yeah.
At times. Yeah, pretty badly sometimes, yeah. And then I remember it must have been a year of, a year including the 5 months in the ashram, and I remember I was going on another walk that day, and I was like, I can keep doing this. There's no schedule, there's no anything. I just wander off. I have a tent. Life is good. But because I had in certain situations been, hanging off the side of a rock, being like, my God, please don't fall backwards, you'll die, no one will find you. And I started feeling that, okay, if I did fall off the rock and I was lying there on my back and no one has found me and my legs are broken, will I be regretting anything? And I felt like, yes, I would regret that I haven't started on my way towards acting in films, because that's always been my love.
And just before coming to the films or to your theater career, you studied psychology at Emory.
Yeah.
What was the interest in psychology?
I've always been fascinated in psychology simply
Is that why you like to play other people?
uh, you w-
I mean, is the interest in acting a similar interest? It's in getting inside the head of other people.
yeah.
No, I mean, you don't have
No.
to agree with me.
I, it's not about it being, I never feel it's other people. I feel like the possibility for all these other people lie inside me, and that's the magic of it. That's the most fun of it. It's not about being another person. It's about just understanding, again, the forces that have shaped this person, and seeing that I could have been shaped exactly like this person as well if those same forces acted upon me. So I don't believe in the thing of another person that you play. It's always you're turning up the volume on aspects of yourself, It just depends which volume what's the equilibrium, what's the balance.
So was theater deliberate? Was there something about theater that appealed to you?
Yeah, I didn't know anything about film, and no one cast me, so I kept.
Because you've had a superb stint and in Mumbai theater and with all the big names of theater, and you've directed yourself 3 productions, I think. And you've worked with Vikram Kapadia, you worked with Kalki, you worked with Rajat Kapoor, you've worked with all the big cinema houses and the theater productions as well as. What about theater kept you going back, other than not
I
getting film
didn't
work?
get cast in films, and I kept getting cast in theater, and
Okay, so when you kept getting cast in theater,
Yeah.
did you enjoy any of it?
I did at times enjoy it, yes.
And what were those times?
So it's sometimes it's like any job. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes you meet a boss that you like. Sometimes you meet a boss you don't like that much, but you do your best anyway.
Sometimes people will make it difficult on you, like you're doing for me.
Am I? I get told this a lot by people, but it's never intentional. This
No,
is
no,
just.
but so
Sorry.
what did you enjoy? No, what did you enjoy about theater when you did enjoy it?
What do I like about theater? Okay, I like.
That's telling me off.
I like being on stage. No.
Could have
Okay,
fooled me.
I like the fact that there's a destiny. I like the fact that the play is the way the play is. I like the idea that I'm saying somebody else's words, but I'm meaning them completely, even though Jim is floating somewhere above watching this whole thing happen, because Jim isn't on, the only
Sure.
one on stage then. I like being in sync with my co-actor and really paying attention to everything they're doing, even if I'm appearing not to, because all of that stuff affects you. You know, little movements, you know, all of that stuff, the way you're looking at me and
Sure.
stuff. And then, um, I like the idea that I'm also connected to an audience that are also giving me energy and are mirroring the things that I'm feeling to a certain extent, because that's a natural process. Mirror neurons that are in your brains, you naturally will empathize with what the other person is going through, and basically you speak, you know, truth awakens truth, or real feelings awaken real feelings, and consequently my real feeling is being magnified by all of these people who are giving it back to certain
Sure.
extents or not. You know, some people are on their phone, or some people are chatting with each other and laughing and stuff over there, sort of not paying
In other
attention.
words, they're doing to you what you're doing to me.
What I'm
No, but
what what should I do?
that's the point. Yeah. Okay. To Hi. Okay, to come back to, I think you've said about theater, and I would really appreciate.
Yeah, right.
To come back,
I like theater.
But to come back to, no, also you've said, and that's an interesting point you've made somewhere, that the scripts that you end up dealing with for theater are actually the words of some of the finest playwrights in the world, right?
Yeah.
And on screen, you can often struggle, or for films, you can often struggle to find a great script, but a lot of what gets made on the stage is already great.
Because the writing process for theater is a lot different. Like, playwrights are playwrights. They've spent their whole lives trying to perfect this, and then the words are as they are. You know, they aren't an approximation that the director tells you, yeah, it's okay, we'll improvise as we go. Don't worry about the lines too much. It's fine. You add some things, it'll be funny. You know, whatever. I love reading a script where each comma makes sense to me. Each full stop makes sense to me. One breath per sentence. So if the sentence is really long and there's no full stop and there's no comma, you have to go all the way through to the end. You have to make sure you hit it, and you keep going all the way, because you can't stop, and that does something to you, and that consequently brings something out in you, and consequently that makes you push all the way through and makes you a bit breathless. And so then when you finally finish the sentence, then you take the pause right at the end. And just that rhythm affects you. It does things to you without you knowing that they're doing them, and that's so much nicer, is to be affected by things as opposed to be molding and crafting and basically lying to everybody under the guise of good acting or careful acting, when really I think what's a lot more interesting is a person being affected.
Sure.
When you watch, like, it's a simple thing. It's like rookie mistake you end up experiencing on sets, or even in plays sometimes. It's when the actor is so concerned about what they're feeling. I don't care what you're feeling. I mean, I don't really care what you're feeling. It's all about what you want from the other person. So if I'm a mother begging for my child's life, you know, it's not about like, oh no, I'm sad at this moment. That doesn't matter. I'm going to say whatever it takes to convince you. I'm going to say it in however way that I need to. It can look sad. It can look a million other things. Depends on what works for you, because it's more interesting to see me being affected by trying to get something out of you, as opposed to being stuck only in my, oh no, but I'm scared now, so then I wouldn't shout at you if I was scared. It's like, why not? You might. I don't know. See what works.
You said that, and you did a lot of the theater while waiting for films to happen. How did Nirja happen? That was your first big
Nirja,
Bollywood film. How did Nirja come to happen?
I had gone in to audition for this girl named Kanika Berry once for a 7-Up ad or something. I did not get it, as is the long history of my auditioning in Bombay. Um, uh, but then she called me in later for this audition, and they were like, "Can you do an Arabic accent?" And I was like, "I don't know." So I tried something that day, which worked, I guess. And then there was a long workshop process with this guy named Vinod Rawat, who, uh, he's a great director. Ram Madhvani. He's so good. You just know someone's so good when they know how to delegate everything with like complete trust. I never met uh, Ram, not really, during the entire workshopping period. We just did it with Vinod, but Vinod was just so good.
And what's the nature of the workshopping for something like that?
Well, we all didn't meet each other. So all of the flight attendants, they workshop together. All of the hijackers workshop together, and I guess the passengers had some kind of thing. I don't know what they were doing, but we would,
Sounds like Air India.
yeah, yeah, only people. And so then, right. So we would learn the lines. So we knew the lines for the whole film before the film starts, which I think is something everyone should do anyway. I don't understand this show up on set and learn your lines thing. To me, it's ridiculous. And then, so we'd have like Arabic lessons, and we'd have tests of like how well we knew our lines and where we were getting things wrong and whatnot. And then we'd have these like workshops where we all we would meet. Sometimes we had to do little character histories, and mostly it was just like to get familiar with each other and have a kind of camaraderie and have a kind of sense of the hierarchy of the situation. And what I found the most interesting is once we got onto the film, once we actually started shooting, everything was done in 45-minute long takes. So they were really long takes. And
Your first scene, I think, in front of the camera, in itself sounds.
Yeah, you must have heard my
Yeah, will you? But will you
description.
tell us?
You want the whole thing?
I do want the whole.
Okay, so we drive up in a car. I got out of the car. I shoot two people, and then I run up the stairs, and then I kick open the door, and I'm like, with the people, the air hostesses. And then I run to the front of the plane, and I open it up thinking it's the cockpit, but it's not the cockpit. It's a clothes rack. And we've got the wrong plan of the plane. So that's bad. So then I come back and I see Neerja's on the phone, warning the pilots. So I grab her, I take her upstairs, I shoot after the pilots that have escaped from the hatch. I'm like, you did this is all your fault. And then I take her downstairs along with all of the passengers, and we move all of the passengers into the center part of the plane, and then we keep them there for a while, and we close all of the shutters, and we just like wait for ages.
And this is one scene, and this is your first scene in
This is
front of the camera
my first time
ever.
in front of Bollywood, on a Bollywood set.
Did it go as you expected?
No, they were like, this is terrible, we have to do it again. But it was extremely adrenaline pumping. I mean, it was like,
How did you, so one part is the workshopping process, but what does it take to get into the character or into the headspace of a really, a loose cannon hijacker?
yeah,
terrorist?
well, I thought of him a bit. I end up thinking of animals a lot. That's nice. So the way animals fight with each other is they'll first, if they can scare the other thing away by not doing anything, step one. Step two is a display. Step three is a growl or a sound. Step four is actual physical violence. But again, as minimal as possible to ensure you don't get hurt. So something you can do easily, quickly, end the fight as fast as possible. And then finally, it's like you get into a proper thing, because ideally you don't want to get into a physical altercation which could possibly hurt you. You want to avoid that at all costs.
Absolutely.
And so then, so So it was that simple. If a look would do it, a look would do it. If I had to scream, screaming would come next. If a word would be next, a scream would be next, a slap would be next, I'll shoot the person.
And what what about this character while you were reading the script? Did it for you?
Because, did it for me?
Yeah.
He was the best male character in the movie.
And what about him was to you the best male character in the movie?
He's the most, he drives the plot forward.
Sure. And you...
For me, it's always about who drives the plot forward. That, to me, is the most interesting. It's like, yeah.
And I think there were, was it all tightly scripted, as you said, or were there improvisations?
It's hard to improvise in a language you don't know.
So, and no, I don't necessarily mean dialogue, but I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, there was some...
No, there were many,
Yeah.
there were many
But there was
improvisations.
something about, for example, the particular scene which is a bit demonic about you asking her to sing.
Yeah.
Right?
That was
And
totally improvised.
That was improvised.
Yeah.
But
that was not scripted.
And will you tell us a little
Yeah,
bit about
Ram
that?
had just said, look, she's learned these 3 songs, you might have to make her sing. I was like, okay.
And basically in the film, you literally put a gun to Neerja's head and say, sing a song.
And that doesn't work, so I had to go to a child's head.
And then, so you didn't know what song she would sing?
She was like, no, she was being cool, Neerja, cool, brave. But then I pointed at the kids.
So at that
then
time,
she
this
sang.
was an improvisation?
Yeah.
And what song did she finally sing?
What song did she sing? I don't remember. I just
Mere
remember
Sapno Ki
snap.
Rani.
Yeah, Mere Sapno Ki. And I'm like clapping snapping in the background, and then I'm like, and I wander off, right?
Yeah. So, okay. The other, and we'll step away from Neerja for a bit, but coming to Padmavat, okay, whatever your life is where that phone is important to you today, you must have a really interesting life. Okay. In Padmavat, yes, you were...
I want to do it in plays so badly. There's a play that I did once called Cock, and the first bit of the play, instead of like that announcement, hi guys, please turn off your cell phones, that no one listens to and everyone just ignores completely. We had a bit where I come up to the stage because I start the scene and I'm pretending that I'm in my action of the thing. And there's a plant, we had a plant in the audience her phone would ring. And then I'd go back to doing the thing and it would keep ringing. And then she took the call. And so I walked over and I took the phone, I smashed it against the wall. And then I went back to the play. And that was to me, I like that.
And
So that guy at the... I see him in the white shirt and the thing.
the casting for Padmavat, you were in Vegas when you, yeah. People who haven't even brought their phones are now terrified. You were in Vegas when you got cast for Padmavat.
Yeah.
How's that for winning?
Nice. Yeah, I'm not much of a gambler.
But how did that come about?
Because I'm bad at it, not because I'm sure if I was good at it, I would do it more. Yeah, Padmavat, I learned the lines. A friend of mine named Mansi helped me do the scene. I borrowed all these clothes from people, necklace and
So to
yoga
audition for the
pants
part,
and,
yeah.
yeah. And sheet, I put a bed sheet over my head. You know I don't know who's watched Padmavat, but the audition
How
scene.
many have watched Padmavat in the audience? That's a generous number.
Oh, so 25% perhaps.
50, but yes.
Not bad, not bad. So then, so it was the introduction scene. It was the one which I was given to.
And you had to record this and send it in
I had
as
to
an
record
audition.
it and send it in, yeah. Shruti Mahajan, who I'd known from before and had also never cast me, she asked me to audition for this thing. And I kind of directed Mansi to come in and walk around me, and I tried not to move very much, and I answered, the Jannat al-Firdaus and what's your name, and Malik Kafur, Ittarka, and blah, blah, blah. And then I sent it in, and literally 10 minutes later, I got a message saying, you're cast for the role. So that was cool. And then when I met him, he was like, who directed the scene? Did you tell Mansi to do that? Because she did exactly what I imagine Ranveer will do
In the film.
in the film. And I was like, oh, I directed it. She's like, oh, great.
What about that character appealed to you?
Everything.
And what is everything?
Like literally everything about him.
Okay.
Such a fascinating character.
Will you tell me
I,
some?
I will.
Yeah,
I will.
okay.
I'm,
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
I'm trying to think of it.
I'll-
Good, nice guy, real friendly. No, he's he is. Yeah, you watched the movie, right? All that stuff. Vain, ambitious, proud, but a slave. Completely enchanced this man, although in the history of it, Alauddin Khilji was more besotted with him than the other way around. Actually, Malik Kafur wound up being one of his best generals, a brilliant war strategist, would go on these raids down south and come back with bounty that nobody had ever seen in their lives. And Alauddin, loved him. So what does it mean to go from being sold as a slave in a market to being the right-hand man of the most powerful person in the country? I think that's fascinating. What a fascinating person. Yeah.
And did you play it as it was written, or was there room for interpretation?
It was basically as it was written. There is room for interpretation, of course, always. Like there's that one scene where he puts his hand out with some seeds in it. He's been feeding this bird. He's like, "Rah," or whatever, And then I come in and Aditi, Marinissa, he's like, what's for dinner? And Marinissa says all of these things, and he's like, no, why would I eat any? I can't remember what's happening exactly. All I know is at one point, he says, he puts out the bird seed, like, so I should eat it out of his hand. And so I had my idea for what I wanted to do in that moment, and he, SLB, sir, he wanted, he had done it. He had got the idea because he was walking around with the seeds in his hand, and he looked at one of his ADs, and he was like, what would happen if I, if I did it like this? How will the AD react? And he imagined they would be humiliated, right? Because you don't want to eat out of my hand. It's kind of weird, right? So he wanted me to play it humiliated, and at that point, I'd figured out that like you have to just do the thing that the boss wants. You have to. So I was like, oh, humiliated. Okay, cool. Sure. Let's do it. Let's do it. And then after 3 takes, he'll be like, what were you gonna do in that time? And I was like, oh, I had a different idea. And he was like, okay, you should just show your nautanki or whatever. And so I've done it full like BJ style, you know what I mean? I've done it full like, okay, I don't have a problem. I'm not humiliated. Look, your wife is standing right there. She thinks she has the power.
Yeah, so there was that tension and there was a playoff in that scene rather than humiliation.
Yeah, why would I be humiliated? I don't care. Well, what's there to be humiliated by? I mean, this is the best life I could possibly have. I was sold in a market. I'll eat out of your hand. I don't give a fuck.
So what is it like to work on a Sanjay Leela Bhansali set and a Sanjay Leela Bhansali film? Is it a thing?
Yeah, it's a thing.
And what is that thing?
It's a big thing.
And what is it like? What's the experience? Is it different from, say...
Yes, we shot over a year and 3 days, as opposed to Nija, which we shot in 13 days, my section. So that's already different. You're living with the character for way longer. You're not shooting in order. You're were constantly changing scenes. They would be changing the scenes the morning of the shoot. It was very hard because I don't know Urdu, or so you have to learn it there and then. And sometimes you've done something in a previous scene where you're like, I should have held on to that for this scene. I didn't realize that this scene is going to be changed like this, because now, okay, so how do I still flow from that scene to this in a way that can show more sides of my character, things like that.
You've said, I think, that you learned on that set two things. One is precision.
Oh my God, he wants it so precise. It is insane. You can't look at both of the eyes, you have to pick one eye. Because it's a close-up. He doesn't like that, the eyes moving between the two eyes, He wants, so you gotta pick one. And then you gotta stick to it. And just look at that eye. And then if you blink, he's like, why do you blink? It's like, I don't know. the dupe and
the other thing you said you learned was economy of gestures.
Economy of gestures, yeah. He likes it. There's a beat to the scene, and there's a rhythm to it, and he's figuring it out while we are also figuring it out. No, yeah, that's how it goes, You run a scene a couple times. Sometimes we did like 55, 60 takes of a scene. Yeah, you don't even know what to do differently by then. You're like, I don't, me and Ranveer are like looking at each other, I don't know. What did we do wrong? We've done everything wrong at this point. Yeah, but like it was all a dance, It's all a very clear dance. You can't be like fiddling and futzing around like this, You can't. There's no time, yeah. It just has to be a sentence.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
You said that Khilji and Kapoor were a pair of sociopaths.
Yeah.
Why did you see them as sociopaths?
Well, in the way this was written, I don't want to talk historically because...
Sure, I mean, as the film was written, yes.
Yeah, as far as the film goes, they're sociopaths because they only care about themselves. What happened?
No.
Okay. Yeah, they only care about themselves and their personal, only what they, everyone is selfish. All of y'all are selfish. But not caring about, not having empathy for life beyond just your own and your own selfish desires, that would make you, in my understanding, a sociopath. So
sure.
I felt like they were nice little. However, in some weird way, because only a snake can understand another snake type, it's like the fact that my sociopath understood his sociopath was the only way that I felt his character was humanized in the whole story.
Sure. And just coming to Made in Heaven, but even more, but even more than specifically Made in Heaven.
He agrees in the sociopath thing.
To digital TV, to web series.
Yeah.
Is there, what for you is entirely different, or is there something entirely different in shooting a web series versus film? What is that key distinction?
Well, you have more, you just have more time you don't have to pack everything into one scene. I don't have to show like 5 different sides of the character in one scene. I know that I have a scene coming up later. I can be soft now because I can be very hard later, and it's fine. I don't have to be soft and hard in this scene perfectly.
Yeah.
And
sure.
Although I do feel that like you're constantly playing opposites. Nobody ever plays just one thing. If you're feeling in a scene, if it's important to appear confident, then I feel like there's the equal and opposite amount of insecurity there as well. And it just becomes about how you hide it and where you show it. And the entire character becomes a lot more interesting if the extremely confident person through the entire scene has that one moment where you see that they're just a normal, insecure, vulnerable person, just like everybody else. You see that one tiny moment, and suddenly the whole character comes alive. Then again, there are other characters where you're not. Oh, it got louder. There are other characters where you should just, when maybe it's better to not show the vulnerability. So I think in a web series you just have more time because you have more material, because it's a longer form. You don't have to tell everything about the character in the first scene. You can wait.
And I know that you did work with Konkana in Death in the Gunj, but while your other film directors were male, here you had women directors. You
Right.
had one male director, the other three were women.
Actually, many
and the
women
writers were
directors
all
for me.
women. Yeah.
Konkana, Daria Guy in
Yeah, sure.
Teen Radha,
Sure.
and then this one, yeah.
Okay. So was the experience, was the gaze different? Did you feel a difference?
You can see that just from the writing. You can see that the aspects of the story that have been told more from a female perspective, and I think that's why the show has done well, because you got to see, you just got to see a side of these people. Like usually Adil would be the hero, which is not.
His wife
That's
was,
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your particular role, again, what about Adil Khanna appealed to you?
Adil Khanna, I just wanted to work with all of them and be in the thing.
And okay,
I like the script.
You
I like
like
the
the
script a lot better than my individual role in this particular case. Same for Death in the Gunj. Brian, you know, take him out of the movie, it doesn't matter. The movie will hold with or without him. But sometimes you just want to be in a good film, or you want to support writing that you think is solid, or you want to be a part of it in whatever way you can be. So it's not that Adil Khanna was however, that said, I have been in a situation in my life where I've been in love with two people, and before that, when I was in college, I think I was in love with this girl who was in love with two people, and I didn't believe her. I didn't believe her at the time. I was like, this is nonsense. This is bullshit. You're a liar. You're just having the best of both stories, and it's not possible. And then later on in my life, it was possible. It happened. So I felt like instead of playing him as which there could have been a version of, where he's just the, cheating husband, asshole cheating husband, I felt it might be more interesting to play that he truly is in love with both of them and he doesn't know.
And what you've said.
And that happens.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's happened to all of you at some point.
The possibility. The possibilities of the web series format you've of course said, but what's difficult about it?
Huh?
What's difficult about web series as a format?
Yeah.
That's where I'm trying to get.
Difficult? It's not difficult.
No, I'm saying what is difficult about the web series format?
It's not.
Yeah. That's not even a hint. We'll take it. Just this last question.
It's not
There's nothing at all that you find challenging about it?
Not in this one.
But I'm saying as a format, is there something that's, for example, and I know again that may not be you, but it's said somewhere that typically the director in a web series can matter less because you've got different directors coming in.
Well,
right?
like that, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
not difficult. You just have to have your sense of your character really well embedded, and you have to keep developing him a bit yourself, just because a new person has come in for just 2 episodes, whereas you've already shot 4 episodes. Yeah. So, but most of the directors on this trusted us and wanted to hear what we had to say, and they were just all very sensitive, wonderful directors. So it wasn't difficult at all. It was easy, and it was quite fun. And the usual stuff happens. You get into arguments with it happens for me. You get into arguments with your co-actors about scenes, and you're like, you're not gonna look at me when you're asking me if I'm cheating? Why aren't you gonna I can lie so easily if you don't look at me, whatever. And then the person is like, please, I listen to the director, and I'm like, oh, sorry.
And what happens in season 2?
Season 2? I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know.
there's a lot we could continue to talk about, but thank you, Jim.
Thank
Also,
you.
I know it's a difficult process to talk about acting, so thank you for making that effort to explain how it works.
No, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much. Could have fooled me. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you.